So a couple of years goes by, and I'd been really studying a lot with Jim, and I'd gotten Progressive Music Center open, and Jim was coming down and teaching, in my shops, and it was just really awesome because there's this legendary drummer that just kind of had residency, at Progressive, and people would just come from miles around to study with Jim Chapin, and it was just crazy. And I just, remember the first time he was ever here, my wife and myself were going to bed one night, and Jim's over in the guest bedroom, and I couldn't sleep. I mean, I was just so excited and jazzed up that there's Jim Chapin like staying at my house, and it's just incredible that I've got this world-class drummer, staying here. And it was just really wild, and just a really fun time, and just a lot of memories about that time. But I just remember one specific memory about that period. Jim, he was still driving, but sometimes he would take the bus. He would take a Greyhound bus, and he'd come down from Sag Harbor, and he'd stop maybe at somebody's studio in Virginia, and then he'd come down to North Carolina, and then maybe he'd take the bus down to Florida, and he would stop at all these shops, or he'd do a clinic or something like that, and he'd just kind of keep moving, and Jim never traveled with a suitcase, and always had his sport coat on. Jim was just old school, and that's just what I really loved about him, and he could just up and go, and he always had that practice pad and his drumsticks under his arm, and that was just a part of it, And so Jim was here for a couple of days, and he did, some stuff in my Wilmington shop, and then I think some stuff in Raleigh or something like that. I took him down to the bus terminal, and the bus terminal at the time was not, it wasn't in the greatest part of town, and I said, well, there's this late 70, early 80-year-old man. I'm just going, all right, Jim, see you later, good luck, So I'll go in there and I'll wait with him, And we're sitting in the bus terminal, and Jim used to like to enjoy a cigar, and so he had a little cigar in his sport coat pocket, and he says, come on, let's go outside and we'll have a cigar. And I said, okay, no problem. It's a really pretty day outside. We go out there, and there's this kid standing there, and he's out there smoking, and real long hair, and he's got this, I think he had on like a Metallica or like Megadeth shirt or something like that, and a couple of tattoos on him, like I think maybe some band tattoos or something like that. And Jim's standing there, and Jim would just strike up conversations with anybody, And Jim says, gets a cigar out, and he says, you a musician? To the kid, and the kid says, he turns around, the kid's smoking, he says, huh? And Jim says, musician, you're a musician, right? The kid goes, yeah. And the kid's probably thinking, what's this old man, doing talking to me, And this kid's got no ideas. Jim Chapin, who's, Harry Chapin was his son, and Steve and Tom Chapin. He played with Benny Goodman and Simon and Garfunkel, and there's like a major player, And Jim says, yeah, that's good. And I could tell by your shirt. And the kid looks down at his shirt, and Jim says, yeah, we're musicians too. And I'm standing there with Jim, and I'm thinking, oh man, what's he getting into, And the kid goes, oh, okay, that's good. Jim says, where you heading? Kid says, Virginia. And Jim says, great, going up to play a gig? Kid says, yeah, I'm going up. I'm going to play guitar at my cousin's wedding. She's getting married, and I'm going to play some guitar there or whatever. And he says, oh, it's nice. It's great. And Jim kind of sits there for a minute, puffing on a cigar, and he just, he kind of stops, and he turns around and looks at the kid, almost like his afterthought, like, oh yeah, let me ask this kid. He says, let me ask you something. You ever heard of Jim Chapin or Billy Cuthrell? The kid thinks for a minute, he goes, no, I don't know who that is. I don't think so. I've never heard of them. Jim says, oh, okay. Sits there, puffs on a cigar, man. Well, the bus was getting ready to start loading up, so we had to go, and he turns around, and he says, well, when you get up there to that wedding, you tell your family you just met them. He just kind of walks in the door and gets on the bus and leaves, and this kid is just sitting there thinking, the hell is Billy Cuthrell and Jim Chapin? They're just so funny because, Jim would just, you ever met, and he would just throw those names out sometimes, but he never had really done, you ever met Jim Chapin or Billy Cuthrell? It was just, sometimes it's like, you ever met, Buddy Rich? No, I never met Buddy Rich. Well, I did. He was a personal friend of mine. He'd tell you like this great story about Buddy Rich, but that day it was just so funny. You ever met Jim Chapin and Billy Cuthrell? And the kid was just completely bewildered who we were, and it was just a funny story about Jim I always kind of remember about him.